Oh, baby, and we are back, everybody. Welcome back to Words with Wayman. I'm your host, as always, Matt Wayman. Coming back, sweet, spicy part 2, everybody, with local Denver jeweler, yoga instructor, my fiance, all-around sassy lady. Give it up for Haley Cassidy, everybody. Thank you for coming back. I think right before we left off on part 1. Basically, we had moved from New Orleans up to Denver. This is basically what happened, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then and then you kind of found jewelry a little bit after that too up here.
Yeah. Right when we moved up here, I just got really into like buying jewelry. There's this store on South Broadway in Denver that's called Ironwood, and I became semi-obsessed with the store. I mean, it's just like the most amazing place in the world. And it really inspired me a lot. And all of the jewelry designers that were in there was a girl that worked there that made her own jewelry. And she sort of, lit a fire into my ass. And she was like, you should do it. It's really easy. And I also realized that the markup on jewelry is crazy.
Oh, it's crazy. Yeah.
So the reason I got into it was just to make stuff for myself.
Yeah.
On the cheap.
Absolutely. And so get the things that you want to get all the time.
Yeah. I had ideas and I wanted to sort of execute these ideas, but on my own. And so I started just assembling jewelry. So buying like the little jump rings and the chain and everything and just putting it together on my own. And then I realized that I wanted to make like turquoise rings and get more into it. So I found this local girl, Michelle Keller is her name. And her business is called Union Studio Metals. Yeah. And she's a badass, and she some really cool stuff. Gave me lessons out of her studio, just sort of one-on-one, instead of having to like go to one of the formal schools in town because they're crazy expensive.
Yeah, they are pretty expensive, and
you have to just dedicate all this time to it as well. And so she was able to work around my schedule, and met with her once a week for 6 or 7 hours, and until I got through all of her classes. But I mean, she taught me what I needed to know to keep going. And
yeah. It is crazy. It's one of those things where that you do have, because some stuff, like with music, you can kind of teach yourself some stuff, but I feel like with jewelry, it is all those techniques that you really need to know.
Yeah, and I mean, you're using all of these crazy things like torches and fire, and it's a lot of it that you need to learn is the safety aspect about it, which Michelle was really great about teaching me, but
making sure you don't hurt yourself.
Yeah. And then she encouraged me to do shows around Denver because there's all these art shows, and people in Denver are so great about supporting local creative people. I'm sure you notice that with comedy too.
Absolutely. One of the best comedy scenes in the world for sure.
People are just down to support people that are trying to do something different. And so I started doing Denver Flea.
That was the first one, right?
Yeah. I can't say enough about that show. I mean, it's just the way that it's put together. I'm not sure exactly who's behind putting it all together, but whoever it is, they're doing
great
a
job.
badass job. Yeah. So, but yeah, the Denver Flea has been great to me, and it's a way to really get your name out there. And even if you don't, I've been really lucky and I've sold quite a bit, but even if you don't, the exposure alone is worth.
Oh yeah, so like you are paying for a marketing aspect of that as well, and then but I mean, there's stuff that's come out of this, like you're in 3 stores now, and you've gotten stores because of the Denver Flea and stuff like that.
Yeah, totally.
And like whenever we go back for Christmas, I mean, you just make like a killing. There's there's
friends and family is the way to go for sure.
You wouldn't even thought of it before, but like people just like want the stuff.
Yeah, they want stuff that they know. People crave to buy things from people that they know, where they know how it was made and where it was made and who made it and everything. It's just like I was like that too before I started.
Yeah, I like going to those fairs and stuff like that.
Yeah,
I think jewelry is a big taste thing, and I think you have really good taste. So Thanks. I think that's why you do super well too, though. Because I mean, there is, even when we go to these shows, there's 20 other jewelers there, 30 other jewelers.
Yeah, there's a lot of competition. With jewelry for sure, which going back to what we spoke about earlier, like competition's not my thing.
Yeah.
And so it gets the best of me sometimes because it's just like, it's hard. You
Yeah,
know, to see
definitely.
like a jeweler that's right across from you that's doing really well, and you haven't sold anything in, you know, an hour or whatever. So
Yeah.
it's hard, it's tough, but
Yeah.
I'm definitely getting a thicker skin and realizing.
Yeah, and you're
that-
learning more. I mean, you're really so new into this too, but I mean, I think you just hit the floor running a lot faster than a lot of people have.
Yeah. And like you said, it's a taste thing. So like the girls that are coming into my booth and that are buying my jewelry are
It's very specific.
yeah, it's like a very specific sort of girl. So even though the jeweler, you know, 3 booths down is doing really well, like it's stuff that like I wouldn't necessarily wear or
want to make or like go towards your brand, really.
So I have to keep. That's the thing with being creative and making things. Like it's really important, I think, to stay honest with yourself and your vision and your taste.
Yeah, I mean that's the biggest thing. I think that's why people want to come into the booth too. And yeah, a lot of these times it is just a numbers thing because some of these things are they market these the flea markets and stuff like that to a specific person, you know. So it's a lot of times not 100% your clientele, but there's so many of these trade shows too, you know, like Renegade and all those other ones that.
Yeah, I'd really like to apply for Renegade in the next couple of years. I don't think I'm quite there yet, but I think that I will be. But that's sort of like the holy grail of shows. They do one in Chicago and San Francisco and LA and New York, and they're just all over. But they do it really well, and they have the coolest stuff. I feel like at their shows.
Yeah.
So
they just cultivate the coolest stuff there. Which is, I mean, I think that definitely opens you up to a lot of stuff because even I know with comedy and stuff, I know more comedians, and now you know all like these jewelers and stuff. It's just like this huge industry where they have a bunch of names, like Pamela Love and. Yeah,
Pamela Love has been like a huge inspiration for me. I've always sort of followed her and her jewelry, and she's amazing, and she's always coming up with these new ideas. And watching somebody that is that successful and that is making new stuff all the time, it's just really inspiring to see that you can, you know, I can do this forever and just have this be what I do. It's just rough, you know, it's hard. I have a lot of respect for my uncle now.
Yeah.
Because it's like, it's not an easy
Oh, and he had to travel all the time too. He had to actually like go to all this.
Does.
Yeah, he gets out on the road quite a bit. Which is tiring too after you do it for that long.
Yeah, and you have to think like once there's booth fees that go along with all of these shows, and once you pay that, and then you know figure your gas and all of your stuff to display, like once you put all that in, like you have to make quite a bit of money at these shows to make a profit, and it's a lot of pressure going into these shows, knowing, you know, I have to make this dollar amount before I even break even.
And some of those shows that he's doing, especially on the road, and you did that one in your first Denver Flea, like it was on the roof. So if it's raining or something like that, it was on the roof of a parking garage. Like weather comes into it as well sometimes, which is kind of an issue. They do a lot of their her uncle does it in like just like parks and stuff like that.
Well, all over, and it's different for him too because his is a lot of manual labor because it's pottery.
Oh yeah.
And so, you know, it's mine's jewelry. Thank goodness, it's just really light and it's easy to carry in. But like this poor guy just has to schlep around like all this pottery, and so
pack it up.
Yeah, it's just a lot of work. But I have a lot of respect for it. There's so many people at these shows, and you know, I encourage you to like next time you're at one of these shows, like I didn't do this before, but look around and like realize what these people are doing and the sacrifices they're making, and to do what they love. And there's a lot to be said for that.
No, because it's definitely not easy. And a lot of people,
you know that you're doing it too.
Oh yeah, I mean you do it, but I mean I think it kind of, and I know that we've talked about this before, but after you started doing jewelry, you're like you knew right away that was it.
Yes.
And it was like it's not necessarily like it's just kind of like a need you have to have now, you know, like you kind of just have to.
And I had searched for years. I knew that I wanted to do something creative, and I had searched for years to sort of find what that thing was. And for a long time, I thought it was yoga. But once that became my job and something that I had to do like for 50 hours a week, I started to not like it.
Sure, especially when you're taken away from the fun part of it, which is doing yoga and practicing and coming up with new classes, the creative part, and then you're the logistical side. You're like just running the people around, like the teachers and scheduling and all that.
Yeah, and ordering yoga mats and like you know,
water.
It was fine, but yeah, like stocking a fridge with bottled water, and it was fine. But folding a lot of towels, I definitely folded
hot hand in the towel game. For a while.
But I don't regret it. I think that I learned a lot, but but yeah, I think that I've definitely found what I was looking for with jewelry for sure.
How do you create stuff? Do you just a piece just comes in your head, or do you sit down and write them down sometimes?
I think it's really important to keep a notebook handy a lot of the time, and I know that you feel the same way. Our house is just filled with notebooks everywhere. But because sometimes you'll just think maybe it's like a shape that you saw, or maybe it's I've been inspired before by pieces of pottery and ceramics and other people's jewelry too. I'll be like, well, wouldn't that be cool if I just changed it a little bit and whatever.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
I think that it's important to write down ideas as they come to you, which you know that too.
Yeah, absolutely, because they will be lost. They can be gone super, super easily.
I get a lot of my ideas really late at night as well, which I know you do too.
Yeah. You got to have that notebook on the side of the bed, or phones to make it a little bit easier these days, but probably not for jewelry, because you actually have to draw the shapes out and stuff like that. Because there's those things. I think for jewelry, I would think that it'd be more of one of those things that just kind of like pop in your head. I feel like it'd be kind of hard to sit down and be like, pump out a bunch of jewelry.
Yeah, no, you have to have. I like to have ideas first. The only thing is that now that I'm making rings with turquoise, if I have the pieces of turquoise in front of me, I sort of look at those to get the ideas. But
kind of think like, what would this piece kind of want, or
right, like
what I think would look cool.
Yes, what do I think? Like, I'll put it on my hand and put it on my finger and twist it around different ways to see how I want it to sit on the finger. But yeah, I also customs are really fun and really cool, like, and challenging when someone else has an idea that they want you to execute.
Yeah.
That's really fun too. So
yeah, and that's another market that I didn't even know was a thing, really. But you sold a couple at this last Denver flea that you did.
Yeah, the holidays are where it's at for a jewelry designer, for sure.
Yeah, it kind of seems like that. That's when everybody wants the jewelry, and we just saw that when I had everybody coming up to me being like, "I need jewelry."
Yeah, people come out of the woodworks for gifts, and people that you haven't talked to in years will contact you on Facebook or whatever. No, people are really cool about that. But just like they know that you make jewelry. They've seen it on Facebook and they want something for their spouse or whatever. But, that's great. I love it.
Why not?
Bring it on.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely money for you, but it's also a thing that I think you're right with. Jewelry, you want to know who it's connected to.
Yeah.
Like, this chick I grew up with, Haley, made this.
Yeah, I know the girl that made this or whatever, So, yeah, I think it's been really fun. It's been really cool. I definitely want to keep doing it. I was lucky enough to build a really small studio in our apartment, Matt's and I apartment.
Because, I mean, that takes money just right away to even get into that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a significant amount of money.
Yes. It's like dropping quite a bit of money right from the get-go, but then you have all of that stuff forever, know?
Yeah.
So it's sort of like a one-time expense. But the stones themselves are really expensive. And
people don't realize that's why rings are so expensive. I feel like a lot of times it is because the stone is really pricey.
Yeah, turquoise is expensive. It's really expensive. And I've worked with a lot of opal as well, and that's really high too. But so fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what it should be. What's the end goal in a couple of years? Because we're moving back to St. Louis here in a little bit. What's the end goal with all of it?
I want to keep the studio in the house. The end goal is to open up a store in St. Louis, where, like you said, just like take my taste and clothing and jewelry and everything else and make a business out of it.
Yeah.
And have a store where I sell my jewelry and hopefully like other jewelry designers as well. And then also have like clothes. I don't think there's really anything in St. Louis like it.
Trying to do something different at the same time.
But yeah.
Yeah, because I think St. Louis is definitely in need of stuff like that. It has so much cool stuff now, but that's why we're excited to move back and see what we can do. We are getting down to it. Before we shut her down, you want to throw out all your deets?
Yeah. So in Denver, if you live in Denver, I sell my jewelry at Ironwood, which was a really good feeling because, like I said before, I love that store. So I sell it at Ironwood, at Meek Vintage, which is on 11th and Broadway, a really cute little vintage store.
Yeah.
I also have stuff in Ritual Tattoo,
nice.
A little tattoo shop that carries my jewelry. So yeah, go find it and check it out. And if you ever need something custom made, happy to do it.
Let her know, everybody. Thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah, of course.
Appreciate that. That is going to do it for us. Support us online at Words with Wayman on Twitter, Words with Wayman on Facebook. Everybody, thank you all so much for listening. This has been part 2 with Haley Cassidy. We will see all of you soon.